Enjoy early access to ad-free episodes each week when you subscribe to Wedding Planning Podcast Premium in Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the show. Reining in your wedding planner, your mom, your bridesmaids, or anyone else who's getting a little bit out of control about the wedding. That's all coming up next on the Wedding Planning Podcast. How do I rein in our wedding planner? Our venue includes a wedding coordinator for the rehearsal and the wedding day, and initially I was pleasantly surprised by how accommodating and informative she is. Since the initial relief and excitement of finding and booking the perfect venue, we're starting to realize the huge task that lies ahead of us in terms of booking everything. The venue itself comes with nothing set up, so we need to choose tables, chairs, place settings, dance floor, bar, basically everything. At this point, I feel completely overwhelmed by her ideas and suggestions, and I'm starting to worry that the wedding she has envisioned for us does not line up with our vision or our budget. How do I rein in our wedding planner and rest easy knowing that we're on the same page from here going forward? Okay, is this a great question or what? And before we dive in here, I will go ahead and say that today's show, you can go ahead and replace wedding planner with your future mother-in-law or your bridesmaids or your sisters or your aunt or anyone else who just seems like they're like 10 steps ahead of you and where you're at currently with your wedding vision and the way that you see things unfolding. There are so many layers to this situation and this question that we are going to review today. The ultimate goal in mind being that you get a firm handle on your wedding vision, and then secondly, and most importantly, that you are able to confidently and clearly express your wedding vision to those who are helping you make it unfold so that you can go forward and not constantly be butting heads with someone who just doesn't quite get what you're going for. So here are some of my behind the scenes notes for you to get started with this. And the first one that we have already briefly touched on is to be very clear about your vision. Now, maybe the case is that a few months ago you didn't quite have a clear vision, or you weren't quite sure what exactly you wanted your wedding day to look like. That's a very common scenario, and we have to start somewhere, right? So for many couples, this means choosing a venue, because once you choose your venue, then you can start to make all of those other subsequent decisions that ultimately all come together in your wedding day. Now, even if that wedding vision isn't crystal clear on day one when you book that venue, typically couples have some sort of general ballpark idea of what they want to see happen. I don't know what that actually looks like for you, but we're going to go through creating it. Okay, so sit tight. I'm going to get there. As you plan and as you have these discussions with a wedding planner or again, anyone else who's helping you, there are so many distractions and so many little extras that start to get thrown in there left and right. And you see things just piling up and you're still stuck back here envisioning maybe a pretty simple, pretty straightforward celebration. And the person who's working with you, again, is like 10 steps ahead. And they're talking about place settings and the color of the silverware and the color of the charger plate. And you haven't even wrapped your mind around what you even want. So what we need to do is create that vision and then make sure that you keep checking in with yourself to be sure that you are being true to that vision and that you're not being pulled away from those core priorities and those core values that you see for your celebration. So this exercise of creating a wedding vision, if you do not have one, or even if you do have one and you really want to get crystal clear on it, this is a key core topic that is covered in great detail throughout a featured show that I'm going to share with you from within my digital planning package. So this is not something I do a lot hardly ever at all, but I'm going to share the audio from this bonus members mini episode or mini meeting, if you want to think of it that way. And this way you can hear directly how I would suggest you prepare yourself mentally for all the challenges that come up throughout your engagement and the challenges that you're going to face, or you may face, I should say, when you're working with someone else who's helping you make this all come to life. So planning your wedding, it's not just about how to hire the best vendors and how to save money on this and that and insider hacks on how to make the best DIY projects. Even more important than that, I can't stress enough, is having your mindset in the right place so that you can truly enjoy your engagement season and so that you can trust that you're making the best decisions that are right for you and right for your partner. So right now, before we go any further, I want to help you get your wedding vision dialed in 150%. And I'm going to play for you a mini episode from within my digital planning package titled Your Wedding Vision, a Detailed Walkthrough. Now is the perfect time to start from scratch in imagining your dream wedding vision so that we can start to take the steps to making it come to life. Flowing through a detailed walkthrough of your dream wedding vision is an exercise that I would love for you and your partner to each do separately and then come together and compare what each of you saw. Now, I don't expect that anyone will have all the answers the first time or see every single last detail in crystal clear focus. The point is not to get it quote right on the first try, but rather to begin to clear your mental slate and give your imagination the permission and the space to roam around towards a wedding celebration that is perfect for the two of you. This means going back to our last meeting and clearing out all the negative beliefs, all the negative expectations, and any negative wedding experiences that you've had up to this point. Right now in this very moment, it is time for a fresh new start. Step 1 of walking through your wedding vision is to clear it all out. This is blank slate time. Now, I realize that you might come to the Aligned Wedding program with some wedding plans already in place. And I certainly realize that there are certain elements for you that may not be flexible at this point. So for example, maybe you already have a venue, it's locked in stone, you've put a deposit down, and that's not something that can change at this point. That's totally fine. As much as possible, I'd like you to try to clear all preconceptions and all assumptions of what you think your wedding should look like, and just give your imagination lots of empty space to roam about and wander. I want you to think outside the box. I know that that is such a cliche term, but really let go of traditional wedding formats and expectations. Your wedding can be anything you imagine. The sky is the limit. It could be the two of you on a yoga retreat. Your wedding could be a small group taking the trip of a lifetime together. It could be a 3-day weekend on a secluded ranch with 50 of your closest loved ones. It could be a backcountry hiking adventure. It could be a courthouse ceremony with a micro wedding celebration on your back deck. This step right here is one of the most important parts of this entire program. There is incredible freedom, creativity, and endless possibility when you give yourself permission to break outside the box, push the boundaries of what a wedding, quote, should look like, and truly allow your inner vision, your values, and your priorities to take center stage. Oftentimes when we sit down to intentionally imagine what we want, instead we see an awful lot of what we don't want. And those things are also really, really productive to take note of. If you don't know what your ideal wedding venue looks like, but you know that you don't want to be in a traditional venue like a hotel ballroom or a church, then jot that down. If you don't know where you want to get married, but you know that you don't want it to be in your hometown, then jot that down. Walking through your wedding vision and giving your imagination full permission to wander and dream of things is definitely an exercise to bookmark and come back to again and again throughout this program. You can repeat this visual walkthrough as many times as you want. Okay, take a few minutes and let that all sink in. And coming up after a quick break, we're going to continue this conversation with some really key action items that you can take to make sure that everyone helping you plan is on the same page with your very detailed wedding vision that you just created. I'll be back in just a minute. Susan's Travel Services is so excited to partner with you to plan your honeymoon, destination wedding, or maybe even your bachelor or bachelorette party. Susan and her team have been planning dream vacations for 27 years, and they are truly the best in the business for start to finish planning services. Travel and new experiences are incredibly special to me, and Susan and her team have helped me plan some unforgettable vacations, including a bachelorette party in Cabo and a family anniversary celebration in Cancun. They meticulously researched the best all-inclusive options for us based on some very specific priorities, and the professional assistance in choosing location, resort, activities, and transportation was absolutely priceless. From all-inclusive resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean, overwater bungalows in the Maldives, or that African safari that you've always dreamed of, save yourself hours of research and guesswork and let Susan and her team find you the best options for a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. Reach out to Susan and her team today by emailing info@susanstravelservices.com. And be sure to let her know that I sent you and get $50 off your final booking or $200 off your destination wedding. Her email one more time is info@susanstravelservices.com. Okay, welcome back, and let's continue part 2 of this week's show with some very specific ways that you can rein in your incredibly excited wedding planner and be 1000% sure that the two of you are on the same page with your wedding vision moving forward. You'll remember from the beginning of the show, this topic is from a listener who's feeling very overwhelmed by an extremely excited and well-meaning, I should say, wedding coordinator who she's working with and who's helping her. But she's just concerned that their vision is not 100% compatible and on the same page. So we're going to talk about exactly how to get there. So you walked through your vision before the break, and the next step to that, the way you really put that into action, is that you can write it down. You can put it in notes on your computer. You can just keep it in your head. That's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. Think about exactly what you saw and what you saw unfolding, and every element in that vision, if and when your wedding planner or anyone else helping you, if they are bringing up things, wedding elements, extra rental items, anything that falls outside the scope of what you saw very clearly, simply, politely, straightforwardly decline. No, thank you. No, thank you. We don't want a chocolate fountain. No, thank you. We don't want an ice sculpture. No, thank you. We don't need a $2,000 checkered dance floor. No, thank you. And if it comes up and you have any hesitation, even if it's not something that you maybe specifically addressed in that visualization exercise we did, if you have any hesitation whatsoever, then my intuition would say that it's not something that's important to you. I think you know immediately, yes or no, that falls within my vision or that doesn't fall within my vision, even if it's not something that you specifically addressed. So for example, the ice sculpture. You probably didn't walk through your wedding day vision and say, oh, wow, I do not want to have an ice sculpture set up at the entrance. But when you're your kind of out of control wedding planner suggests it, you know immediately, no, we do not want an ice sculpture. We could talk for an hour about all the other things that might come up that you will potentially politely decline. For example, a first dance. Maybe you don't want to do a first dance. And if your wedding planner has trouble wrapping their mind around that, then it might take a couple times, but just very clearly explain a first dance is not something that is important to us. Cake cutting. Maybe you're not even having a wedding cake and a cake cut is not in the cards. A garter toss. Flowers, people carrying bouquets, elaborate centerpieces, a dedicated room set up for the kids with a bunch of board games and their own separate food buffet. Do not be afraid to tell the person helping you that you're envisioning something different, maybe something completely different from a traditional wedding, and you want to keep things on the simple side with a maximum focus on spending time with your guests, drinking great cocktails, eating awesome food, and dancing the night away. And side note here, unless, of course, you want any of those things that I mentioned, if you want an ice sculpture, that's fine. I am the last person on earth, please believe me, who's judging you for anything you choose to do or anything you choose not to do. That has nothing to do with it. I'm just rattling off things that come to my head. So if anything I list off is important to you or it is a priority, please know I'm not judging you for including that. I just want you to be aware before you're sucked into stuff before even realizing that it's happened. And in doing this, in having this confidence in your vision and being able to communicate that clearly, imagine the flip side of that going through the 6 to 9 to 12 months of your engagement, constantly feeling like you can't quite explain yourself or constantly resisting recommendations that don't fit what you're looking for, feeling like you're always defending your choices against someone who just isn't getting it. That resistance creates so much anxiety and so much stress on your part that is totally avoidable. And this is why it is so incredibly important to get it all aired out now, get it all out on the table, and be able to share, again, with confidence, exactly what you have pictured with your wedding planner right now at the beginning. Or again, if it's not a professional wedding planner you're working with, anyone else who's helping you with your planning process. It's absolutely exhausting to have to explain yourself over and over and over again. So let's get a rock solid mindset right now today. Have that uncomfortable conversation or conversations right now, and then you can be able to move forward knowing that everyone's on the same page. Something else I want to bring up in this conversation is reviewing contracts with a wedding planner who is getting a little bit carried away. Don't ever feel pressured or feel like you have to sit down, look at a contract for the very first time, and make a decision right on the spot. I would always recommend that you take any contracts home that your planner is proposing and review them with your partner behind the scenes in private. Take your time. So this couple whose situation we're discussing today, this couple specifically, they were going to be meeting and reviewing contracts for the catering, the DJ, and for the rental items with their planner, who is a little ahead of them. And it's just always important that you're not sitting down and making any impulsive decisions just to, quote, get it over with, or maybe because you don't feel comfortable asking for that extra time. Maybe you're feeling pressured to make a decision on the spot. Wipe all that away and buy yourself a couple days, a week, whatever it is, whatever works with your situation. But you always have the option to take a contract home and think about it overnight or again for a couple days. Do not feel pressured to make a decision right on the spot. If you have a vendor who is making you feel that pressure and making you feel like if you don't decide this minute, you've lost your chance, then I would 9.9 times out of 10, I would recommend shopping around and looking for someone else to work with. Somewhat related to contracts, but just in general, if it doesn't feel right, something that's being discussed or a solution that's being proposed, if it doesn't feel right or you're just not quite sure about it, then table it. Again, just table it by yourself overnight, sleep on it, or a couple days, or even a week. All the most important pieces are already in place once you have your venue and your wedding date. And again, I do not think that there's any rush or there should be any overwhelming, crushing pressure to make any decisions right on the spot before you've had enough time to think about it, talk it over with your partner, and make sure that it's the right decision for you. So maybe that means getting the vendor's phone number or their contact information and put it in your purse and let your planner or your mother-in-law or whoever you're working with, let them know that you will contact them or you'll do the further research and you just need to think on it. In almost every single situation that you could ever dream of, there is time to take a deep breath and think it over and make a decision that works for you. It breaks my heart to hear from couples who feel like they've been pressured into deciding something or committing to something before they're really ready. It puts a stain of just, again, anxiety and overwhelm. And this might be like a little bit strong of a word, but almost a sense of bitterness at the process because you feel like you have lost that control. And I always want you to feel like you're in control. To wrap up this week's conversation, I'm going to move away from the professional wedding planner and let's talk for just a few minutes about working with a loved one. I know that not everyone hires a dedicated wedding planner to work with in the months leading up to your wedding day. Oftentimes that's a best friend or a bridesmaid or a cousin or a mom or any combination of all of these people. And believe me, I understand and I know that these people, regardless of how much we love them, these people can get a little bit out of control at times as well, and they may also need to be reined in. So as you're working with your loved ones in planning, number one, boundaries are very, very important. I would resist feeling like you need to answer everyone's text message when you have 6 different people texting you from every direction about 6 different wedding topics, and everyone wants an answer now, and everyone wants your opinion now. I would table those conversations for maybe a dedicated time in the evening when you sit down for 10 minutes and you answer everyone's question one time. When you start engaging in 6 separate text conversations or threads about 6 different topics while you're at work, trying to concentrate on something else, this, my friend, is an instant recipe for just feeling completely overwhelmed. And that doesn't just go for wedding planning, that goes for texting and life in general. Trust me, it happens to me every single day. But by creating these boundaries with your loved ones and creating the boundaries for yourself, really, you're going to keep a lot of your sanity intact. Another way to manage avoiding feeling overwhelmed by your loved ones as you're working on wedding stuff is to take the time to be deliberate and make a plan and delegate really specific tasks to each person who's helping you. Give them something very set and very specific to work on and funnel their energy towards so they're not just out on Pinterest looking at wedding stuff in general and sending you, again, 1,000 text messages or 1,000 emails. People really enjoy being asked to do something specific. It gives them direction. It gives them a purpose. And I hear, as much as I hear from couples, I hear from your loved ones as well. And something that I hear a lot from moms and maids of honor and sisters is, I want to help, but I don't know what she or he or they need help with. And I wish they would just delegate something for us to work on. So take that to heart, use that to your benefit and your advantage. It'll make everyone happy. And that wraps it up for this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will meet you here again next week, same time, same place.